next up we have Peter Rachleff. Is that right?
Sure.
Okay. I'll go with that. Once again. Right here. Peter Rachleff is a labor historian who is taught at McAllister College, Metropolitan State University. He is founding coordinator of the East Side Freedom Library, which will be a center for labor, African American, and immigrant history, housed in the historic Carnegie Library on Greenbrier Street. He writes the monthly Conversations Between the Past and the Present blog in the Twin Cities Daily Planet. Please welcome Peter Rachleff.
Thank you, David, and thank you all for coming in on such a beautiful day. Don't I get a soundtrack? Don't you think, what if my life was set to a soundtrack? What would it be?
Fight the power.
Fight the power. There we go. I wanted to read my piece from the Almanac, which was really the first of this monthly series, Conversations Between the Past and the Present, where I'm trying to sort of flesh out the relevance of history and an awareness that though some of us would like to think that the past is behind us, the past actually keeps changing based on our experiences in the present and what we need and what we need to understand. So, my piece was given this dreadfully boring title, St. Paul Connections, the Labor Movement and the Civil Rights Struggle. I'm sure I had a sexier title. The August 28th, 2013 March in St. Paul, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the 1963 March on Washington, expressed the historic interconnections of the labor movement and the civil rights struggle. While other observances highlighted Dr. King's iconic I Have a Dream speech, featured prominent political office holders, or called attention to current critical issues such as education and housing, the St. Paul March placed the labor movement at its very center. The march was organized by local and state chapters of the Service Employees International Union, known as SEIU, which represent custodians, cleaners, window washers, security guards, school employees, hospital workers, and home health care providers. Today, the majority of these organizations' members are African Americans, Somali, Oromo, Ethiopian, Eritrean, and Liberians from Africa, Asians, including Hmong, Vietnamese, Laotian, Karen, and Tibetan, and Latinos, Mexican, Salvadoran, Ecuadorian, Dominican, and Chicano. Of course, there are also white members, and they too were well represented at the march. In all, these are the workers who clean our buildings and offices, provide us with frontline health care, and cook and serve our children's school lunches. They have learned that their efforts to do their jobs well, to earn a stable income with family supporting benefits, to be treated with respect and dignity on the job, and to secure the political status of citizenship, all rest largely on the effectiveness of their union organization. The organizers of the St. Paul March chose as its starting place the park named for the man who devoted his life to this understanding, Frank Boyd. How many of you have been to Boyd Park? Oh, well, add that to your bucket list. Go to, it's not so far, Boyd Park. Born in Kansas in 1881, Boyd had moved to St. Paul in 1904 and gone to work as a railroad porter for the Pullman Company, then the largest employer of African American men in the United States. Pullman's ads in newspapers and magazines urged potential customers to quote-unquote experience the Old South by riding in its well-appointed sleeping cars complete with black attendants. These workers gave the St. Paul to Seattle run the ironic name of Miles of Smiles, as they stood on their feet around the clock performing quote-unquote happy service in order to collect tips to supplement their low wages. Boyd became one of the leading organizers of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, a union that saw the struggle for higher wages, shorter hours, benefits, and a grievance procedure as inseparable from the struggle for civil rights, political voice, self-respect, and dignity. Theirs was a long and epic struggle. Brotherhood activists from across the country met in 1925 and asked A. Philip Randolph, a former Shakespearean actor, socialist newspaper editor, and eloquent public speaker, to become their executive director. In the ensuing years, not only did the union organization spread, but the porters' wives and sisters organized themselves into the Colored Women's Economic Council to support the porters' efforts and to secure their own economic and political voice. St. Paul's Carrie McWatt, Art McWatt, whom some of us may know, Art's mom, Carrie McWatt served for many years as national president of this important, though not well-known, organization. Randolph became the most important African-American labor leader in the country, and he promoted an agenda that linked union and civil rights. In the late 1930s, he secured union recognition from the Pullman Company and a first contract that not only provided many economic gains for the porters, but also required the company to provide them a slot to post their names in the railroad car so that they could respond to customers' use of such appellations as boy or George, as in George Pullman, or worse, by saying, quote, "There's no boy on this car, I'm Mr. Jackson," unquote. At the same time, Randolph became the leader of the National Negro Congress, which linked African-American labor activists from a wide range of industries and unions into a force that could demand that white-dominated unions and levels of government change their discriminatory rules and practices. On the eve of the U.S. entry into World War II in 1941, Randolph threatened President Franklin Delano Roosevelt with a march on Washington that would reveal American racism to the world, unless FDR would decree the end of discrimination in war industries and government employment. FDR gave in, and Randolph called off the protest. Frank Boyd's local activism paralleled Randolph's. When he was fired in the late 1920s for his organizing efforts, Boyd went to work at the Armour meatpacking plant in South St. Paul and continued to organize porters. He also supported Frank Alsop, an African-American organizer for the Packing House Workers Organizing Committee, who came from Cedar Rapids in the mid-30s to unionize more than 10,000 meatpacking workers at Armour, Swift, Cudahy, and Superior Meatpacking, many of whom were black and Hispanic. There was actually a streetcar, the Rondo Stryker streetcar, that ran from St. Paul's black neighborhood directly to the packing plants where men worked. Although Boyd passed away in 1962, other African-American trade unionists responded to Randolph's call in 1963 for a march on Washington, a march for quote-unquote jobs and freedom. Randolph and other African-American activists, along with key white labor allies, such as Walter Reuther of the Auto Workers and Herbert Hill, the NAACP's labor secretary, feared that the civil rights movement's momentum was lagging. Randolph's longtime associate, Baird Rustin, chose January 1, 1963, the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation, to present Randolph and leaders of the newly organized Negro American Labor Council a plan for a national march and action in Washington, D.C. on August 28th, the anniversary of the murder of Emmett Till. They leapt at the idea and over the next months recruited leaders from the Southern Christian Leadership Council, the NAACP, the Urban League, and the Congress for Racial Equality to help build the event. While Dr. King's speech has been given pride of place in the history books, it was the African American labor movement that initiated and built the idea for the march itself. So let us give a hearty thank you to the organizers of the August 28, 2013 March in St. Paul. They have honored an overlooked but important history by continuing to organize workers and to link the labor movement with the civil rights struggle. And let us join with their members to take on the task of what remains to be done. So, and I want to encourage you, if you'd like to learn more stories like that, I'm teaching a 6-week Minnesota labor history course through the St. Paul Public Schools Adult and Community Ed program. I have flyers for that. And we will be having the program at the Freedom Library a week from today. 4 Voices for Labor, Making St. Paul Work for Working People. And historians will be talking about William Mahoney. Did you know that there was once a labor mayor of St. Paul, 1930 to 1932? He was the editor of the St. Paul Union Advocate. And I'll be talking about Frank Boyd. Someone else will talk about Florence Rood, who was the first woman to be president of the union that included men and women together, the St. Paul Federation of Teachers. And Joe Carth, who came out of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Local at 3M on the east side to become a congressman and to oppose nuclear power, though he worked for a company that worked in this. So that is next Saturday, a week from today, at 11 at the Freedom Library on Greenbrier Street. So see me for flyers if you're interested. Thank you very much.
Even without a